only one button.
Okay, your life.
There you go.
Hey, in the Siddiq Mutma'ina, there was the hadith in the khutbah. Truthfulness is comfort in the heart. Allah Akbar.
That's it. That's my
Second
best.
right.
That's my best.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He's
I
gone.
tasted the other day.
I can start.
Inshallah.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم ما بعد فخير الكلام كلام الله تبارك وتعالى وخير هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها فإن كل محدثة بدعة وبعد حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Wallahi, thank the brothers for waiting. A few minutes that you waited. I know your time is valuable. People are probably tired. They came from Khutbah to Jummah and they may have went back to work out in the earth and then they come back. So, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala reward you all particularly and then us all. I mean, wallahi, I'm a little bit tired because I actually went back out and did some things myself. But wallahi, I remember the statement of the son of Shaikh Abdullah ibn Abdul Aziz ibn Bas rahimahullah ta'ala. You know, the Shaykh, when he died, he was close to 100. Him and both Imam al-Albani rahimahullah. I remember I had just come back from both my first trip to Egypt and Yemen in 97, 98, came back home to the States, was living in East Orange. And Shaykh al-Albani died. And I remember I cried like a baby, you know, and then once I started crying, the whole masjid started crying, you know, because I had a chance at that early age in my life, 25, you know, to go after being a Muslim for 5 years, not only to make Hajj, may Allah accept my Hajj, but I actually had a chance to go study, seek knowledge in Egypt and Yemen. And my first trip to Yemen, my first trip to Egypt, many people, they know and they say about Sheikh Mukbil, but the first big scholar that I sat with was Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Marzuq al-Bana, who is was the older brother of the well-known Hassan from Egypt. And I remember when Sheikh Hassan came here in 2008, he was in North Masjid al-Rahmah. And they called him an alim, and he stopped the dars and he started to cry. And he said the same thing that had him in Ohio, Masjid Sahaba, Columbus, Ohio. And the same thing by the time he got to Philly, the message was clear. He said, I'm not an alim. He said, Ana, لست بي طالب العلم. He said, بل أنا طويب العلم. He said, I'm not even a student of knowledge. He said, I'm a small student of knowledge. He said, أما أخي Muhammad kana alimun. He said, my brother was an alim. And that was the first one I had a chance to sit with in 1997. And I remember the Shaykh, and I'm talking about this because I'm tired, but I want to make a point. I remember the Shaykh used to come because he was living in Mecca and Jeddah. Mecca Makarrama and Jeddah, which is like 45, 30 minutes from Mecca. And, you know, he would come home to Egypt on Utla vacation to give da'wah, 6 months, 5 months. That's how I met him. So it's this big masjid. Abdul Latif, he may know this masjid. It's on Mustafa and Haas. Big government masjid shaped like a spaceship. The Shaykh used to come to this masjid to teach every day. And I remember after Fajr, you know, he would tell the people, you know, whoever want to sit in the dars. And he was teaching from this big Mukhtasar Sahih al-Bukhari, which was by Ibn Muntir. who summarized Sahih Bukhari. And then Shaykh al-Albani did some commentary on that abridged version of Sahih Bukhari. So the Shaykh was teaching from Kitab al-Tahara. And being that I had studied that book already in the States, because when I went to Egypt, I already knew some Arabic, already studied in America, So the Shaykh was teaching from this, and then he started to explain. And I'm sitting thinking in my head, saying, wait a minute, that ain't on the page, because I know the page is on. Then I realized, oh, wow, he's getting it from his head. And I had seen people do it in America from books and papers, and the only one that I had seen really quote from his head like that was our Shaykh Abdullah Tawfiq Abu Muslima. But I know the Shaykh, he wasn't an alim, he was a Shaykh, a student, but to see somebody in his, like late 80s, quoting like that, I was amazed. And the Shaykh, when we would pray Fajr, he would moan when he would be in ruku'. You could hear him like this because the pain in his legs. And when it came time to sit in jalsa, he wouldn't sit in jalsa. He would sit on his buttocks with his legs flat out like this and put his hand on his thigh and make it tashahhud. So I remember somebody asked him about sitting like that because, people think, well, you have to sit like this. They don't know, the real rulers of the salah. The main thing is that you have to sit for the last tashahhud. So he said that, it's wajib and it's a pillar that you sit. He said, and I'm sitting like that, So the point is that Shaykh, man, he used to be in pain, man, but he would teach, man, every morning after Fajr. And I remember, now I'm going to switch to his generosity, and I'm going to go back to Shaykh bin Baz. I remember I used to, he would tell the people, pray Shuruk, pray the 2 rak'ah. Some people call it Shuruk, some people call it Duha. It's a difference between the two, but some people say it's the same. At any rate, he would say, stay and pray 2 rak'ah, because some people think that the hadith, man salla salat al-shuruk, or man salla rak'atain, ba'da tulu al-shamsa, رأى الإمام فكأنه أجر عمرة أو حاج مع النبي. But that hadith is fihi nazar. It's some real weakness in that hadith. But many people like to use it. Whoever stays in the masjid of the Imam and he prays 2 rakats of duha, then he will get the reward like he made umrah or hajj with the Prophet. But the hadith is da'if. Nah. So anyway, the Shaykh would say it. And so I remember one time he was carrying his books, particularly I was, And the big Egyptians with the big beards and the Pulab from Virginia with the big beards, they were asking the Shaykh questions. I was quiet. That wasn't my league. I'm just learning. And the Shaykh, he would always ask me in the dars. He would look at me and he would say in English, do you understand my speech? Like that. So one day, carrying the Shaykh books, I asked the Shaykh, I said, and I asked him in Arabic, I said, I want to know about Hijrah. Hijrah. So he said, okay, what is it? So I asked him, هل علي أن أهاجر من أمريكا إلى بلاد المسلمين? This is upon me to leave America and make Hijrah into a Muslim country, because in the 90s, this was the big push in America. And the Sunni community, especially East Orange, Hijrah. I mean, we knew all the verdicts about Hijrah, and people had started to make Hijrah. And so the Shaykh, he said, why do you want to make Hijrah? He said, you can give da'wah, stay there and give da'wah. They are your people. And I thought, wow, he's saying it to old little miskin me. I'm going to give da'wah to who, but, he didn't say anything. So, wow, okay. So the Shaykh, he took me, he forced me to get in the car. I mean, my house was like, get out of the car and cross the street, basically. But out of respect, I got in the car. Shaykh drove the car, made a U-turn, and then pulled up, and he said, where's your house? I said, there. Then he went in the sun visor like this and took about 280 Egyptian pounds. Back then, that was close to long subject on Nabi Muhammad. That was close to almost $100, I believe. A little more than $100. I think it was 269. You get 269 Egyptian pounds for $100 or something like that. But I like what the hell. No, it was about $70 because it was almost like Saudi Arabia, 3 something Egyptian pounds for $100. So he said he gave me the money, and he said it is better to give your money to the student of knowledge than to give it to the poor. He said because when you give it to the student of knowledge, in most cases he is poor, so you get the reward for giving to the student who helps Allah's religion and to the poor. He said, wow, look at this. So then another time he asked me, he said, where's your family? It's like the Shaikh was reading on my forehead. And I said, they're home in America. He asked me how many children I had. At that time, I think I had 5 children. My youngest son was just born, Hosea, by my first wife. So I got a call. They said, you got to come home. Your son has pneumonia. Your wife is struggling with the kids. And so I was waiting on some money to be sent from America to Egypt because I brought a car at the auction before I left. And I had been in Egypt now 6 months plus. I brought a car for $500 and had a friend who had a car lot. He was going to put the car on his lot, sell it for $11, send me the money. So I make a $600 profit. So I'm waiting on this money, and the Shaikh asked me, where's your family? So I tell him. And so that same day, I get the call. So now I'm stressed out. And this is a lesson when you talk about when you're really worried or stressed, your tolerable end goes out the window. That's why Shaikh Laymen, he said, for the one who seeketh knowledge, he should try to make sure he have no women problems, no money problems, because it's going to hinder his tolerable end, seeking knowledge. So I'm stressed out now. Oh, my son got pneumonia. People calling me from EO. You got to come home. Your wife is, doing, a job with the children, but she needs your help and so forth. So I'm up all night praying, making dua, praying. I don't sleep. And so the first adhan, then the second adhan, Fajr. So I go to the masjid, and this morning I have it in my mind, I'm going to pray Fajr and I'm going to bounce. My eyes bloodshot red. We pray Fajr, and before the Shaikh starts, it's dark, so I get up. And the masjid is so big, it takes you about 3.5 minutes to get from where he is to the exit. That's how big the masjid is. So that means you're walking for a minute. You can't just get up and hit the door like in this masjid. So I'm walking. So he starts the dars. Then he looks up and he says, hey, he tells my friend Mustafa, who was there from America, call him back. And so Mustafa trots behind me, calls me back, and he said, the Shaikh wants you. So I go back and I just sit down because I understand the fit of him telling me to come back is like saying come back and sit down. I don't need to say, Nam ya Shaikh, stop the dars, what you want. That's ayyid. That's disrespectful to Shaikh. Just ijlis ya ibna. Sit down with my son. That's in other words what he meant when he said go get him. So I sat down. So he stopped the darts, he looked at me, he said in English, what's the matter with you? Are you sick? He could see I was, eyes red, face, tired. So I said, Alhamdulillah lakul ha. He said, Inshallah, stay for the dars. So I sit through the dars. Then after the dars, the norm, he said, pray 2 rakat. We prayed 2 rakat. And then he told me, he said, don't leave. After 2 rakat, people, they gather around the Shaikh. They want to ask him questions. Somebody's got his book to carry to the door, this and that. So as they proceed to the door, thinking the Shaikh is going to proceed like he normally does, he tells me, Ta'ala. He walks me in the corner away from the people. He opens his coat. Sometimes I can't hold this story. This is a touching story for me. The Shaikh, he said, he reached in his coat pocket. He pulled out something about this big, and then he opened it. And he stuck his hand in there and he counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 $100 American bills. He said, go home to your family. That was the last time I seen the Shaikh when I was there in 2005. My friend, he called me and said, your Shaikh is here. I said, where? He said, at the masjid. I jumped in the taxi. I told the taxi man, Imshi! Go fast, you know. Goddamn man, the Shaikh had already left, man. By then he's blind in a wheelchair. And that's from 1997 to 2005, you know. And in 2010, the Shaikh, he died, rahmatullahi alayhi. You know, but what's my point? Let me go back to Shaikh bin Baz. Shaikh bin Baz was in his 90s, like the Shaikh was when he died. And somebody stayed with the Shaikh, watched his whole regimen. I mean, the Shaikh prayed 2 hours before Fajr. Then he get up for Fajr. Then he goes for the Salat. Then he would stay in the masjid and make dhikr to the sunrise. Then he would go back home, you know, after sunrise. Then he would eat breakfast and he would let the poor people come and eat with him. So he has this big breakfast and then he goes off to the school and he teaches. And then by Dhuhr time, you know, he prays Dhuhr, then he takes a nap, then he eats lunch, and then he prays Asr. Then he has Durus in the masjid, Prophet's masjid. And then Maghrib, he prays the Maghrib. Then he has more Durus in the masjid. Then he eats his dinner after Isha. Then he goes to the radio station to do question answer. The person who stayed with the Shaikh bin Baz 24 hours, he said, Shaikh, I'm a young man in my 20s. There's no way I can do the vigorous schedule that you do. He said, Shaikh, how do you do it? An old man, blind, how? The Shaikh, he said, if the soul and the heart is intact, the body does not feel the pain. See, for many of us, that's overhead. Like, yeah, okay, what? But the khutbah today was talking about that issue. It's the heart. And that's why a lot of times people can't grasp the concept. Shaykh Islam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he mentioned, he said, you know, if the heart is salim, then the aql, will be able to understand what's being transmitted to the heart. But if the heart is tainted, and you know what the Prophet, he said, إذا فسد الجسد كله. If that thing is bad, and it's in a bad condition, the whole body's in a bad situation. So imagine, this is your brain. The other thing the Prophet said, إذا صلحت جسد كله. If it's in good shape, the rest of the body is going to be in good shape. So people whose heart is free from, like we said, leaving what you die. And it's not always, okay, well, I'm not sure that thing, it's halal, it could be haram, I'm going to leave it. It's the other way too. I'm not sure, if that thing is haram, but I'm sure it's halal, I'm going to take it. That's why we go back to the hadith about halal bayyin, haram bayyin, when they talked about weighing. Yeah, because sometimes there's something that you got to weigh, and then there's a conclusion. Either it's on the side of halal or haram, because the halal and haram has levels. But this hadith we mentioned in the Arba'ina, and we mentioned today, wallahi, when you leave what's doubtful, it also includes the honor of your brother. Which the Prophet warned you about ghiba, talking about your brother. He said, ghiba dhakra akhaka bima yafrahu. Mention your brother by something he disliked. I said, okay, ya Rasulullah, what if what we said about him was true? He said, if what you said about him was true, then you will have eaten his flesh. This is the meaning of ghiba, because you're saying something behind his back doesn't mean it's true, it's not ghiba. You're saying something that he wouldn't like, it's true, it's backbiting. And so what about if it's not true? He said, because of bahtahu. Then you have slandered him. Many ulama said when you slander somebody and it's behind his back, you did both. You did ghiba because it's behind his back, and because it's wrong, it's slander, it's a lie, then you earn both of them. As opposed to if it's true behind his back and not slander, you only earn one. But look at the point. The point is, if you're not sure, this hadith that Hassan mentioned, da'ama yuribuk, it's applicable. Believe it. It will save you. And it will save the heart that we're talking about. Another hadith of Abu Hurairah. And Husn Islam Mar'i. This is a serious issue. Sometimes a lot of people come say, Akhi, you know what I heard? And we all ears. What? But it don't concern us. Meaning, why you want to know anyway? For what? What are you going to benefit? Let's say he's wrong. Let's say she's wrong. You're not a Muslim country. You're not the authorities. You're not the judge. You can't take him or her up on any charges. You can't make atonement for them. They have to make their own atonement if they're wrong. If they're right and somebody slandered them, they have to let that person off the hook, many ulama say. Although some ulama say if they make a sincere tawbah, Allah Azza wa Jalla will forgive them, because the origin of that transgression is Allah told you not to harm your brother. So it's a difference of opinion when you harm somebody, if they really have to forgive you or not. It's a difference of opinion. But let's just say that they do. The one who's being involved can't help you in that, and can't help him in that, or help her in that. So what's the benefit? That's why, again, it doesn't concern you. Meaning, it's nothing you can do. Why involve yourself? And by the other token, the Prophet he said, وَمَنْ سَتْرَ مُسْلِمًا. This is big. سَتْرَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Whoever shields his Muslim brother. There's a narration where the man was caught drinking time of the Prophet. This is after the prohibition of khamr came down. You know, drinking was in stages. Stages 1, 2, and 3, that's it. It's haram. Somebody came out public drunkenness. So now that means if they see him, if it's that you gotta hit him with some clothing, hit him with a stick, a switch, something that's not going to harm him, but to make him feel embarrassment, and that's the idea, so people won't come out in public. If you're going to do it, and hide your sin. That was the ruling. He should be, hit. And they was hitting him with shoes. Imagine somebody take this off, hit you, take off this slipper, And the Prophet was there. So now they upped what they were doing, they heightened it. Now they want to talk. Look at you should be ashamed of yourself. The messenger's here. The Prophet told him that, don't help the shaitan against him, because he's drunk. Number 2, he's in open. Number 3, he's with us, he's embarrassed, sinful. He said, don't rebuke him, don't help the shaitan against him. Verily, he loves Allah and his message. Did they go and say, Fulan, mashallah, we were beating him, he was public drunkenness, this, that? You didn't hear any hadith like that. You didn't go publicize it. And the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, he went to visit a man, his house. So imagine I come visit you, knock on the door, you don't know it's me, you say, come in, I come in, you sit in the crib with a fifth of Jack Daniel on the couch. Got some marijuana, easy widers, got a dancer or a hook or whatever. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, so I sit down. So you say, well, Shaikh, this is my crib. I ain't gonna hide nothing. I mean, mashallah, make dua for it. That's what the man said to Umar. He said, I'm not hiding, I'm not scared of you. Like I'm wrong, but I'm in my crib. So Umar advised him. Taqillah, utukhada, tuba Allah. Leave it, make tawbah. Umar left. Umar didn't mention to nobody in the Jama'ah. Why do you think Umar didn't mention to nobody in the Jama'ah? It's his house. And the hadith of the Prophet, Umar obviously knew man satara musliman, whoever covers the Muslim. Satara Allah alayhi fi dunya wal akhirah. Allah will cover you. In this life, everybody needs to be covered from something.
Yes.
And the hereafter is going to be worse. From all the creation, imagine. I put you out there, you be ready to beat me up. Imagine on the day of judgment, everybody looking at what we did. No, that ain't going to be cool at all. That's not the nature of the human being. We don't like that. You know. So Umar didn't say nothing. A whole year passed. This guy didn't come out to the masjid. He was a regular person who worshipped. That's why Umar went to check on him, because he was a regular. He was from, the Muslims, the people who prayed. That's the fadal in the time of the Prophet and his companions that you prayed in the masjid. Because those who did purposely, they were looked at as possibly being munafiqeen. Miss a lot like we do, and it's okay. It was serious. So the man had come around for a whole year. Then after a year, he finally came to the masjid and he said, yeah, Amir Mu'mineen, and Taraktu Kullu Hada. He said, I left all of that. What type of day? And I made Toba Hada. But just imagine, somebody heard something, you don't know, you wasn't there. And even you know something, Fansahu, Sirah, advise him in private. You don't have the right to spread it. That's what the likes of these hadith teach you. Why? Because if you spread it, not only you incur a sin, not only Allah, the opposite of the hadith, Allah will cover you in this life if you cover the Muslim. If you expose somebody in this life, and then Allah will expose you in this life. Yeah. See, some people, they stuff is covered by Allah. Allah mentioned. You do stuff in the day and the night, I cover you. But two things. Either people are stupid and they go broadcast. Man, you know how many girls I had this weekend? Shoot, I had 6 or 7 of them. You're stupid. Why are you broadcasting yourself? And for Salam, he said that Allah Ta'ala will not forgive al-mujaharun yawm al-qiyamah. Mujaharuna, those who broadcast their sins. Allah won't forget them. Hadith is in Sahih Muslim. If you do something and Allah cover you from the people, Allah did that for you. You're supposed to keep it from the people. If Allah kept it, who are you to let it out? Allah cover you out of His mercy, hoping and wanting you to make Tawbah. You foolish, you go tell somebody what you think Allah is going to do on the day of judgment. He's not going to forgive you. Because you removed the covering. It's like you put your, underwear down in public. Expose your awrah, your things that people don't want people to know about them. You expose them while Allah, He covered you. So this is why the likes of these hadith are so serious, but they're profound, because they show you not only if you violate them, deal with something that it's not clear to you. You deal with something that's not your business. And we're not excluding and joining the good and prohibiting the evil. We gave example of Prophet and those Sahaba, that man was drinking. They didn't turn away. They had to say something. This is from the way of the believer. Umar, when he went to the man's house, he couldn't say, okay, this your crib, give me a drink, or okay, I'm out of here, don't say anything. I tell him, tuck it down. Haram. Then you got dancing ladies here, haram. I think about that. What's up, man? But the thing is the heart. The more you have the noob in your heart, again, the Prophet mentioned, the more you have sin and disobedient, that heart is affected, the rest of the body is affected. So you wonder why ayah is quoted, hadith is quoted, ayah is quoted, hadith is quoted, until somebody's blue in the face and they don't understand. It ain't that they don't know it, they hear it, but the brain can't comprehend what to do with it, because the heart has to be right first. The heart is right, the thing will be absorbed, then the brain is going to be able to take that knowledge and work by it. But if the heart ain't right, Allah most fine. So this, when we talk about this issue, many of the Salaf, again, they used to be serious about this issue. And there's some narrations that have some narrations there, not authentic, but they try to make the point. They said in the time of Bani Israel, there were 2 men. They reached a level of worship to the point that they will walk on the water. Now we know ain't nobody supposed to be walking on the water. That's some spooky stuff. But they mentioning this to show you these people really used to stay away from people's business. So they said then another person came and he wasn't walking on the water, he was walking on air. So the two people who was walking on water said, wait a minute, how did you get to that level? So he started to tell them he would leave people business alone, he would guard his tongue, he wouldn't say nothing but the truth like this. But this hadith is mawdu'a, it's fabricated. But the point is they're trying to show you real righteous people. And of course these people are some type of extreme Sufi, to float on water, float on air. But they're trying to show you part of the belief of the mu'min, part of the characteristic of the believer, part of someone being on istiqamah upright is that they have to control that tongue. Luqman, we mentioned him in the khutbah. Luqman al-Hakim, he's in the Quran. And some people have said, well, two things. Luqman al-Hakim. This is haram. How could you say al-Hakim? Lanna min asma'illah al-Hakim. How can you say al-Hakim? Because this is from the names of Allah. The alif in the lam does not always mean istiqraq. Istiqraq means kilalatin, totally. So the alif in the lam doesn't always mean totally. Sometimes it means zu, like a person possesses something. So if the alif in the lam takes that meaning and you say al-Hakim, then that means zul hikmah. He has some hikmah. But not that he has all hikmah. That's the meaning of the alif in the lam when you say al-Hakim for Allah, not for creation. The same thing, al-Aziz. Somebody can be al-Aziz. Dhul Izzah. He has some nobility, some kirama, some respect, some high, nobility. But that don't mean he's totally noble, totally, high ranking. That's Allah. Totally mighty. No. So Luqman al-Hakim, who they said he was African from Abyssinia and he was a slave. But Allah mentioned him in the Quran because of his character. He said that he would not speak or talk about things that was not his business. So much so people thought he was a prophet. You hear the whole story about him. Advising his son not to shirk Allah and shirk with Alum and Alim, don't make shirk with Allah or my son, that was the greatest wrongdoing. So he was asked, it said, some people asked, wait a minute, aren't you the one that was up in the mountains? Narration. He said, yeah. He said, so why you didn't talk about what you've seen in the mountains? There was some things going up in there. He said, because because of the longevity of being truthful, meaning I might say something that was not the haq, because if I'm not there, I can't mention just because I heard or what I think. You can't. You have to be sure. He said, and طول طول الصدق a longevity of being quiet والكف عما لا يعني and staying away from what doesn't concern me. Yeah, that was why he didn't say nothing. None of my business. You see what I'm saying? So, and then you have other narrations that they mention some of the companions when it came to this issue, that they would have mentioned, things for being afraid that that person that they talked about, maybe he was a person close to Allah Ta'ala. And Rasulullah, he mentioned it, man aada li waliyan faqad adhantuhu bil harb. Allah just said, whoever harms a servant of mine, I will wage war against him. And then we'll make this point and one other point, we'll finish. This point is so issued, we're going back to the tongue again. And the honor of the Muslim. We covered so many hadith talking about the heart, the tongue, and the limbs. Now, when it comes to, no doubt, enjoining the good, prohibiting the evil, or when it comes to the issue of preserving or protecting the religion, then we know some scholars of the past, they used to talk about some of the people in the chain. Like, for example, if the person, he was, kadab, he was a liar. And Shaykh Mukbil, he mentioned this. He said, even if a sheikh says about another sheikh, who a kadab, he's a liar. He said, number one, لازم another tahri. You gotta have to investigate and check it out first. You can't just take that sheikh's statement because the sheikh has to have a proof. He said, secondly, إذا يتضمن الأمور الدنيوية أو فيه شيء من الحسد فلا يقبله. He said, if it's some personal issue between them of dunya, this one don't like he's coming up in the ranks, or this one don't like he has more students than him all of a sudden, or some type of envy. The sheikh said, then that type of statement cannot be taken. So when we talk about many of the ulama, they will mention if they knew the person was a liar, maybe he had some books used to write forged hadith on the prophet like this. But many ulama wouldn't speak about somebody even in the issue of trying to defend the religion and warning against innovation and people corrupting the religion. They said, because what if by chance that person is close to Allah Ta'ala? Suppose I make a mistake. And I remember one sheikh, he was one of the big shuyukh of Asbahani. I forget what Asbahani, what generation, but I remember the story. He was teaching a book that he wrote about the people in the chains of hadith. And he was teaching the masjid. And then his sheikh came in and he heard him rebuking somebody that was in that book. So he said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm defending the deen of Allah Ta'ala from, these people of inhiraf and bid'ah. And so the sheikh said to him, what if on the day of judgment Allah Ta'ala forgave that person and you're wrong? He said, did not you hear the Prophet ﷺ mention إذا اجتهد المجتهد, if a person who's a big alim, he's trying to deal with an issue and he makes a mistake, he gets one reward. Then that sheikh, he closed his book and he just started to cry because the reality set in. And they said he never talked about a person after that, from that time. That's not to say, again, somebody's a bona fide liar or on the religion, lying on the prophet, or person is sahib bid'ah. It's clear, like, not the homemade bid'ah we have today. People don't like to say, who a muqtadi is a muqtadi. Don't say Sheikh so-and-so said. Sheikh so-and-so take a whole country off the madhab. How can you make a whole country muqtadi'een like they did in Yemen? Wallah musta'an. ولا أبالي به some people that did this, we know, they get mad when you mention, this happened, Sheikh Rabi' had Madkhali. Al-Haq al-Haq. And this is a country I studied in, so I have the right to say it. Some of my shuyukh, the whole country, Muqtadi'een. And we know that had some group, Imam al-Hajuri, Sheikh Yahya, and how like. I mean, this is a human issue. Don't you know the story of the two Muhammads? Muhammad meaning Muhammad Ismail, Imam al-Bukhari and his teacher Muhammad. The two Muhammads, yeah. The one, he was Sheikh Bukhari's teacher named Muhammad. He told the people benefit from him. But they didn't know the student was going to go and stay with Imam al-Bukhari. So when he seen the circle was getting a little, started making up lies on Bukhari. Started plotting. To the point they made such a fitna for the Imam. The Imam tried to explain something about this the Quran created, and then doing that, they attacked him more. To the point he was pushed out of the city, man, for a whole year, boycotted. A big fitna. So this can happen to anybody. But the point is, when you talk about the issue of what they like to say, a jarhu wa ta'deel. Yani jarhu is when you criticize somebody. But ta'deel, you praise somebody. And this is a small, Bihar ilm al-hadith. It's a small chapter of a whole ocean of knowledge of the science of hadith. And you have people, أخي لا يعرفوا يعني والله المستعان كبر من الدبل. He doesn't know his front private from his back private. يتكلم بهذا جوه وتعديل. بل لا يقرأ سورة الفاتحة إلا بأخطاء يعني الجريمة. He doesn't recite al-Fatiha except with mistakes that changes the meaning. Yes, لا يستحي, but he has no shyness. This one he's often, that one Joe وتعديل. Are you serious? رجل جديد في الدين مسكين في دين الله تبارك وتعالى يتكلم هكذا ولا يبالون. Person's brand new in the religion, understanding real poor, he talks like this with no shame, no care. Allah understand. حتى العالم هذا ليس مخصوصا لكل عالم. Even for scholars, it's not for every single scholar. This is a special area. Allah understand. So even when we talk about that aspect, these issues of the leave what don't concern you, well, if it's something that falls in your lap, again, you advise the person. You deal with the person. You try to ascertain what's the problem. I think you make a whole problem for people that need that item. You make a problem for a whole country that is a country known for talabatul ilm, seeking knowledge. You make a problem for a whole country that's known to be a country that yani fiha rabbaniyin, scholars raising and grooming the people. You make a whole problem for people mithlu nahnu fi dar al-kufr. People like us in the land of disbelief. And then you have Hajj with the Qatil, with Tabagat with the Hasid. Now you have this one, hostilities with that one, envy with this one separated from that one is warning against this one. And in the end, we know the Muslim said, that لا يحل يعني لا يحل لمسلم أن يحاج أخاه فوق الثلاثة. That you can't stay away from your brother for more than 3 days. But that's the issues of dunya. I make you mad, I disrespect you, I said something I shouldn't yet. But when you talk about deen, there's no limit to how long you can leave a person off, except in two things. If it's going to cause a bigger problem, then you leave that boycott. And if it's not going to make any benefit, that person's not going to leave the evil, it's not going to affect him in a good way, then you can't boycott him. And thirdly, lastly, if you in the non-Muslim country, or you in a Muslim country, but you are the minority, or you are fi zaman al-da'f, you are in a time of weakness, then you can't boycott the Muslim, the other Muslim. So even us, we're in a non-Muslim society. What does it look like the non-Muslims see our beef, see our division? That makes us weaker. And that's why all the ulama, they said the main thing, don't let the people see your conflict and your beef between you and your countries that are non-Muslim countries. And all of this is because of the lack of paying attention to the likes of these hadith. Leave what you doubt, what you don't, for what you don't doubt. And husn Islam al-mar'i, from the perfection of a person's iman or his Islam that he leave was not concerning him. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you truly believe until he wants for his brother what he wants for himself. الدين النصيحة ثلاثة لله ولكتابه ولرسوله ولأمة المسلمين وعامته. Helping Allah's book by learning it, defending it, practicing it, upholding his religion, the sunnah of his messenger, giving the aid to the people, knowledge of the common folk. إلى غير ذلك من هذه أحاديث الشريفة وأسأل تبارك وتعالى أن يعلمنا من علمه سبحانه وتعالى, to give us knowledge from his knowledge. وأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يزكي قلوبنا وتطهر بدنا من عيوبنا ويكفر سيئاتنا وتوفنا معها الأبرار. Ask Allah to sanctify and purify our hearts, clean our body parts, and to make us come amongst those who are forgiven. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his help and his mercy. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi وسلم تسليما كثيرا والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.